All right, let's go ahead and look ahead at this week. We are on week 12 of the season, so we only have 3 weeks left to make or break your season to get you into playoffs or go fishing. Yeah, so let's get into it. So first up, it's myself versus Dino. Last week I went away from me and gave you the win, and that was correct. And unfortunately, I don't have much more confidence this week, and I'm actually going to have Dino beating me this week as well. Matt Stafford to Devontae Adams stack. You're going to have to throw against Tampa Bay. You have to throw it because you can't run against them, and you have to throw it to keep up with Baker. And so there's going to be a lot of yards from Matt Stafford, Devontae Adams on the other end. Um, and then the other piece that he has is Trey McBride off of that Jacoby Brissett, resurgence against Jacksonville. On my end, Michael Pittman versus that Kansas City defense has me real nervous. So I'm real nervous about that. And of course, along with that is Daniel Jones. I'm a little short, and so I'm playing two running backs on the same team. And then, Woody Marks, he might be kind of my X factor. Oh, and let's not forget, Devon Achan is on bye this week. So I lost my basically my main man. Uh, so Woody Marks, he tomorrow night is really going to see if I have a chance this week or not because he has to do something against Buffalo tomorrow if I'm going to have a chance. But I think it's going to be Dino.
I'm scared for you because Dean had a bad week, so it's almost like he alternates good and bad. It's almost like he's going to go off this week. But I think you find a way to squeak out a win. And you have a lot of really good matchups. I like your matchups this week. And I think Dean has some good matchups too, but I like yours. And more than that, I think you win because Josh Jacobs, I think, doesn't play. And
There's that.
even if there's that, because that's huge because he has nobody else. Isaiah Davis, I mean, he has Isaiah Davis, Nick Chubb, but that's a big loss if you lose Josh Jacobs. And then the other spot that I just noticed, he is playing Cooper Kupp. You never know what Cooper Kupp can do in any given week, but it's not the same old Cooper Kupp. And so that's a weakish spot. I got you squeaking by. I got you squeaking by, and I'm scared for that Ram stack though going against you. Stafford and Devontae Adams could have a week. They could have a week, and you're gonna have to score quite a few points though if you're gonna win. Because I think Dean is gonna put up a decent amount of points, but I think you barely squeak out a dub here in week 12.
We can only hope. I think
Hey,
there's
let's
two.
Rick, go ahead, finish, and then go ahead.
I
Tell
was
me,
just
say what
saying,
you
I
want.
think there's two matchups where both teams are 5-6. So out of that cluster of six teams, I think four of them face each other. So um, that's actually pretty interesting to start off this
It's kind of
run
a
into
make
the
or break
playoffs.
week. Speaking of Woody Marks, we predicted him to have a really, really good week last week, and he did not. But he does face a Buffalo defense that just gave up huge numbers to Sean Tucker. So he's got a good matchup. Jalen Hurts has a good matchup for you. Your two, well, I want to say your two Seahawks running backs have a good matchup against Tennessee, but Tennessee shut down Woody Marks, so
Right.
I don't know. But I maybe Slick Rick gets it going for you this week. He's knocked the rust off, and facing that Carolina defense, he can get you something. So I got you
Well,
in a real close one.
that Tennessee thing, I was listening to another podcast, and they were saying how uh, Tennessee wasn't exactly scared of Davis Mills, so they were stacking the
Yeah.
box to try to shut down the run. You're gonna have to be a little scared of how Sam Darnold's throwing the ball. So uh, I think Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet will find a little bit more room to run. So and at least that's what I'm going to be banking on this week. And we'll hope for the
And
best.
yeah, yeah. I think you win. I think you win, but it's going to be close.
Do you have
And
a
yeah,
do you have a current tally of our matchup predictions?
that's what I was going to say. So going into last week, we verified, and you were, gosh dang, I gotta remember. You were 40 and 31, and I was 38 and 33. So you had a 2 game lead. Last week I went 3 and 4. You went 4 and 3. So you gained another game on me. You now have a 3 game lead. You sit at 44 and 34, and I sit at 41 and 37. So you are actually 10 games above 500. I'm 4 games above 500. We've both climbed the ladder and put together some better weeks here recently, but you have taken off even more than I have. And yeah, we'll see. We'll see if you can have another good week at predicting.
I think I think next year there needs to be
In
an
your
incentive
case,
for
well,
the commish
maybe the
battle.
maybe the league mates can get together and buy a little goodie bag for the winner of the pick'ems.
We could do that. I was thinking that I'll just take your fourth round pick next year, but we can do that
Well,
too.
yeah, no, it's
All
gonna
right.
that would be a 27. That would be the 2027 draft. I can't agree to it.
Oh
Can't agree
Lord.
to it. I can't lose any 27 picks.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next matchup before we lose our huge amount of listeners out there. We have
Yeah,
you versus Tidal Wave. You know, Tidal Wave had a rough go last week, and I I fear that it might continue. And I think that you are somehow going to patchwork your team to a win this week. I don't like a lot of his roster. I mean, Odunze is either booming or he's busting. He's had terrible games the last couple games. Cedric Tillman, a Brown, awful. You know, try and then at the end, Jordan Mason and Van Jefferson finishing out his roster. I'm just not a big fan of trying to expect that many points out of all those people. And then his main stud and Jonathan Taylor goes up against a really good run defense in Kansas City. So I think that you with Jacoby Brissett leading the way, George Pickens, and finding some good value in your running back room, I think you're going to go ahead and get a win this week.
I like my roster outside of the 2 running back spots, which is obviously a huge deal. But I think Michael Carter can catch some passes, and Bam Knight is actually questionable as of now. So who knows if it is Michael Carter's, you know, day to take over the backfield a little bit more. Keaton Mitchell could have he's gaining more touches, and he had a terrible drop that led to a Lamar Jackson interception last week. But he's getting more valuable touches, and they could be, up way big on the Jets to where Derrick Henry doesn't get as many touches as Keaton Mitchell does. So I'm hoping for some value there, like you talked about. And I talked about this. I don't know if it was on last week's or the week before, but I'm catching Tidal Wave in his bye week hell because if you go look at his bench, there's a lot of good value on his bench, and he's having to plug and play a lot of guys that you just mentioned, and they're just not guys you want to count on. Jonathan Taylor has that tough matchup. He does have a really, really good Drake May matchup against Cincinnati, but I do have Stephon Diggs. So you would think if Drake May has a big day, Stephon Diggs will have a big day. So I can counteract that. And I like my chances. I think I'm gonna take Tidal Wave down this week. And it's mainly because he's in bye week hell, and I'm fortunate to be catching him at the right time.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes it just pays to be lucky. And speaking of luck, Merch
Yeah.
Luck in our next matchup goes up against the Pigskin Princess.
What a host. What a guy.
Uh, Gotta love segues, especially in New York. I am going to give the Pigskin Princess the edge here over Merch Luck. Jordan Love faces a pretty damn good pass defense in Minnesota. James Cook faces a really good run defense in Houston. And then he's playing Luther Burden paired with a trio of tight ends this week. So he's going with the three tight end route while some of his receivers are on bye. Um, and so I just think that there's a little bit more potential for some points and boom coming out of the Pigskin Princess side. You know, that Kansas City versus Indianapolis game, that should be a pretty I would think a pretty good game. Um, Especially the Kansas City side. Dak Prescott's been playing well, and yeah, I just think that she just gets a few of her players to actually go off where Merchant doesn't really have any boom potential going for him. So
The Jamar Chase suspension comes at the worst possible time for Merch. Pair that with the Chargers' two receivers going on bye. I know they didn't have a good week, but you still would rather have them in your lineup than on your bench. That is three big. I mean, I'm not a Q Johnson fan, but Jamar Chase and Ladd McConkey out in the same week. That's big time. Chris Rodriguez was showing some flashes there in the Commanders' backfield, but he's on bye. I just I don't know if Merch Luck can overcome all that by plugging in three tight ends and Luther Burden, and he's starting Tony Pollard. So Tony Pollard is not, AJ Spears has cut into Tony Pollard's work, and it just it's not looking as promising on Merch's side as the princesses. So I got the princess. I'm agreeing with you. Hopefully Jackson Dart can play. It looked like he's on track to play. Yeah, it looks like he has a chance to get fully clear. So that would be a big thing for the princess. But yeah, I like her chances over Marsh Luck this week.
yeah, next matchup, Money Muscle versus Stallin Ballin. I don't think we need to talk too much about this matchup. At least if I'm thinking what you're thinking, Money Muscle is going to run away with this one. JSN versus Tennessee, T Mac going against what's an uncharacteristically soft San Francisco defense. And then Greg Dortch gets another opportunity because it looks like Marvin Harrison's going to be out yet another week. And so I'm liking those. And then, the fact that Caleb Johnson goes immediately into Stahl's lineup, that should just speak to the outcome of what to expect. So that's all I'm going to say about it.
Money Muscle, easy dub. I didn't even pull up the rosters.
All right, next matchup we have Sly Dog versus Scat Pack. Um, you know, you know, I want to go with Sly Dog this week. I'm
Mm.
gonna go with Sly Dog. Like I just said with Greg Dortch, Michael Wilson will get yet another run as the number one receiver for Jacoby Brissett, and so Sly Dog has him out there. And he also has Emmanuel Wilson, who he'll get some run through there since it looks like Josh Jacobs will be sitting out this week, and if he does, Emmanuel Wilson is a starting running back. And so you pair that with C.D. Lamb and Derrick Henry running against a no defense New York Jets team. Um, I I think that Josh Allen will get another 40 burger um, for Goonslick tomorrow, and it'll look promising for him, but that might be the last time he sees a heavy lead because I think here comes Schley for the dub. So
Yeah, Scat Pack is affected by the Chargers bye week as well, with Herbert and Keenan Allen going out. So he's plugging in Tyler Lockett and Joshua Palmer.
scary.
The rest of you, the Scat Pack's the top seven guys look solid. They look solid, but those last two spots are just scary. And Schlydog, you know, there's some scary spots too on his side. Tez Johnson, he came back to reality last week, but
Yeah, but
and I don't know if Godwin is going to be. I don't think Godwin is quite.
would you would you rather have Tez Johnson with Baker Mayfield throwing the ball in a game where they had to keep up with the Rams, or would you rather trust Tyler Lockett against the Cleveland Browns defense or Palmer being, however often he's used against a pretty solid Houston defense. So it's funny, like, yeah,
Yeah,
Tez Johnson is kind of a risk, but he's the best one out of those three. So
Tez, yeah, he's got more upside, and he's shown that even after a bad, past week. And I don't know if Godwin's going to quite be ready to come back. Even if he is, I don't know if they have a high snap count for Godwin. And I still think Tez Johnson is. If Godwin comes back, it would still be Godwin, Ibuka, and Tez Johnson would still be getting a high snap count because he's been their number two. So yeah, to answer your question, I trust Tez Johnson and Schlydog's. He he had some guys sitting on his bench that are now going to get some big time opportunity. Michael Wilson, like you said, gets a second week. Emmanuel Wilson should get some good run in Green Bay with Josh Jacobs out. And I didn't think whenever you said Schlydog at first, I didn't think I was going to agree with you, but I got Schlydog.
okay. All right. Well, Schley, don't let us down. Go ahead and get that win for us. All right. Next
Yeah,
matchup.
but I guess he finally took Keon. As long as he doesn't decide to put Keon Coleman in the lineup.
Yeah, he's out right now, at least. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, luckily. Yeah. Okay, let's move on.
C Mike takes on Team Louis 514, Louis from Best Ball. Um, I just have to go with the run that Louis is on. I'm gonna go with Louis to take over C Mike. Um, Not only is Louis on a run, but C Mike, there's some matchups that I'm not really too fond of. Well, right now he has Bucky Irving in the lineup. We'll see if he even plays. Christian Watson, I like how he's coming on. I do think he's basically the number one receiver, but Minnesota, like I mentioned, their passing game, they're pretty much shutting down or at least highly limiting those receivers. And so in an offense like Green Bay, where all the passes are spread around so thin already, if the yards to be gained is pretty much nothing, I don't expect a lot to come out of those receivers in Green Bay. Um, and so that paired with what Louis has with Rice and Nakua and Bijan, I just think that he overpowers Mike this week.
Yeah, I want to go Jay Louis. It looks like Ramondre Stevenson's also going to play this week, and you would think he cuts into Travion Henderson's workload some. So that hurts C Mike. The Saints defense is terrible, right?
It's not great.
So Bijan could have a field day.
Yeah.
Well, he's starting Kirk Cousins and Bijan. Jay Louis is. But I just think, man, the studs carry Jay Louis. Buffalo just, went up and down the field on Tampa Bay's defense, um, mainly because Josh Allen was throwing it all over the place. So I think Puka could have a big day against that Tampa Bay defense, and then Rasheed Rice, he's had a down week or two, but I think he gets it going, and just I think there's too many studs on Jay Louis' side, so I got Jay Louis this week.
Um, the last matchup we have is Mason versus Talk About a Win. This is the other matchup between two 5-6 teams. I think this is the matchup of the week because it's 5-6 teams, and I do think that it'll be super close. I think this one is going to be a really tight. I'm going to go ahead and give the edge to Mason. Um, you know, just I think that he has CMC, right? He has basically the best fantasy asset you can have this year in terms of who can go off. And Quinshon Judkins, I feel like against that Las Vegas defense, they'll ride him, especially Shadur Sanders starting this week. I think that they're just going to get that run game as going as much as can. So I think that those two will carry Mason. And then talk about a win though. While on the opposite side of that game, Genty faces a really good Cleveland defense. Um, and Romeo Dobbs, again, he's the receiver for Green Bay that I don't trust that much. He does have some players that could go off, Jahmyr Gibbs versus the Giants and T. Higgins, who is going to be like, Joe Flacco already loves T. Higgins, clearly. And so without Jamar Chase there, he might have a 20 target game. He might go off for 3 touchdowns. So a lot can happen in this matchup. And really, I'm just going to give the edge to Mason, but I wouldn't be surprised with whoever comes out on top.
So Monday Night Football is Carolina at San Francisco, which does not seem like a very exciting matchup. But for these two teams that have Greg has Bryce Young and Mason has Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey, Monday night could be interesting here. I'm actually going to give the edge to Greg, and I like the T. Higgins point that you brought up. I don't like Greg's quarterbacks as much as Mason's. I don't think any of the four quarterbacks that they're starting are just absolutely great by any means, but I like Brock Purdy and Tyrod Taylor over Bryce Young and who's the other one? JJ McCarthy, but by not it doesn't give Mason that big of an edge. And so I just think I'm going to give the slight edge to Greg with the T. Higgins point that you brought up. And then you got Gibbs and Nico, and you got some good plays there. I did Jalen Warren. What did we say about him? Doesn't practice. That could be. Oof. I mean, he could slide Genty up, and then does he have anybody else on his bench? Not really. Jalen Warren being out could be a big deal. Jalen Warren being out could be a huge deal. As in, I guess he has one option, but yeah, I on Mason's side, I just don't know if you can trust Khalil Shakir. I don't know if you can trust Brian Thomas Jr. It looks like he's going to play right, but can you trust him at this point? And then Bucky Irving could come back and eat into Sean Tucker's workload. So, or Sean Tucker could be, relegated back to the number 2 role. If Bucky Irving doesn't play, Sean Tucker could have another big week. But it's close. It's kind of a toss up, and I just my gut's telling me Greg's gonna get the win.
Yeah, like I said, it is a toss up. Anybody can come out on top. So yeah, well, that'll do it for matchups this week. So good luck to everybody out there. Yeah. And I guess that all that's left is some bold predictions, right?
Yeah, which I don't have anything in mind. Do you?
Well, I could always start with the first TD of tomorrow's game.
Yeah,
And, you know, I think that Josh Allen runs the ball and he goes for at least 80 yards rushing. And so it's very easy to say that he gets the first rushing touchdown. Uh, but I'm going to go with a 6 yard in the flat to Ty Johnson, running back, for the first score.
I'm gonna take the easy route and say Josh Allen does rush for the first touchdown. It
Yeah.
just kind of makes the most sense, I think. Although last week it was crazy because we both thought. By the way, our bold predictions last week were not very good. I don't think,
They
but
were
I
not.
think last week we said that the Patriots would score the first touchdown and the Jets actually scored the first touchdown,
Yeah,
if I remember correctly.
they did. Justin Fields actually looked kind of
You would
competent.
think the Bills would score first tomorrow night.
Yeah.
You would think the Bills score first tomorrow night. And Josh Allen just seems too obvious. So I'm going to take the obvious choice there. But
Yeah.
Ty
I
Johnson's not
think
bad. It baffles my mind how good James Cook is and his snap count. He's like, I got to go back. Who has James Cook merch? I mean, James Cook's still putting up good numbers, but his snap percentage is not. I mean, sometimes it's down in the 50s and 60s. It gets up to the 70s some games, but they never truly like just 85-90% of the snaps. Like they always factor in Ty Johnson, a little bit of Ray Davis, and you would just think how good James Cook is. They would let him stay on the field more, but they don't. But I was gonna say just the obvious choice, Josh Allen. It could be a James Cook run, but he, like you said, or like I kind of was just pointing out, when they get down to the red zone, sometimes they take him out. So your Ty Johnson pick could be, a good one too. He had a good week last week.
Hmm. I
But
agree.
you got anything else as far as bold predictions? Because
Yeah. So we talked about this, and we talked about my theory for Kirk Cousins and how throughout his whole career he has loved his wide receiver two. And I made the joke about Daryl Hodge being the wide receiver two. So, if y'all don't know, uh, Drake London is out, meaning Darnell Mooney will be the number one. But I don't think it's Kadero Hodge that's the number two that's going to see the snaps. So you can expect a three catch, 58-yard, one touchdown game from a David Sills the fifth, if you will. So for any of you looking for a piece to throw into a flex and you want to trust me on this, be my guest. So David Sills the fifth, everybody. Three for 58 and one incoming.
quite bold, quite bold,
But
quite bold there.
other than that, I don't really have much else. You know, um, my bold predictions were so off last week. I told you this why one of the things I like about your team, so we can make that one. I think maybe Keaton Mitchell, and it might come during garbage time when he has all the game, but he might go for like an 86-yard touchdown. Just the first play of one of the last drives, and he just breaks it, and he puts the nail in the coffin.
I like that pick. I like that pick a lot. I think that I don't know how bold this is. I guess it could be considered kind of bold, and it helps you. I think Seattle blows out Tennessee, so I think uh, Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet get a lot of carries. I think they both have really good games, and I think they both get into the end zone. I think they both score a touchdown. I think it could be that kind of day against the Titans because it just doesn't seem like the Titans have a chance against. Because I picked you to beat Dean, and so in order for that to happen, you got to score some points. And I think those two running backs, they could both score touchdowns and have big games. It just doesn't seem like the Titans are going to have any chance in that game. And the way that Seahawks offense is at certain points, like they can overwhelm you, and that favors well as far as a game script for your two running backs. And then other than that, I'm kind of don't really know where else to go. I don't know if this is really bold, but just going back to the T Higgins thing, like Joe Flacco is going to target the crap out of T Higgins. You would think they're going to be so far behind with Drake May, just not so. I don't know if not so far behind, but Drake May's going to light up that Bengals defense. So the Bengals will be playing from behind. Joe Flacco is going to be slinging it, and he's already proven that he will just target the crap out of somebody. And I think that guy this week is T Higgins. So I don't know final numbers, but I could see T Higgins pushing, the amount of targets that Jamar Chase saw those couple weeks,
Give a
as in like
number.
the
Be bold. Give a number.
targets for T Higgins.
No
I,
fantasy score.
fantasy score for T Higgins. I'll do targets first. I think he could have 20 targets. I think he could have
Okay.
20 targets, and I think he could catch.
Say he catches
I
15 of
think he
those.
could catch about how many?
15, 14, 15.
I was gonna say 13 or 14
So at a 10-yard
for
clip, that's about 140 yards.
100,
But
about 140, 150 yards and a touchdown. Like I think it could be. I think it could be that kind of day.
was about 40 points.
So that would be 36 ish, 35. Yeah. I think he could have that kind of day. And it just Joe Flacco, you've seen it in the past, and I don't think it's going to be any different this week. So that bodes well for Gregory if that does come true for him to get back to 6-6 and knock off Mason this week.
Yeah.
You got
Well,
anything
shoot.
else?
I think that's it. Let's we got this final week before Thanksgiving week. It's gonna be some fun football to watch. Go Ags. Yeah, and that's all I got. If anybody's looking for a place to watch the game and I haven't already sent you an invite, probably because I don't have you on Facebook or anything, Friday at my house. You can comment on this YouTube video if you want to know more.
And if anybody, I know we're winding down the season, we're winding down the regular season, and once the playoffs start, we'll still do this podcast, but obviously we won't have every matchup to. I guess we would have every matchup to predict, even if you're in the losers bracket. But obviously, people only care about the winning side. But if anybody ever wants to stay up late and join us on this, it is a blast. You do have to stay up late because it runs from about 9:30 to 11. It's currently almost 11 p.m. So if anybody is interested, though, we would love to have a guest appearance on this with us before the end of the season because I think it would be really fun. So if anybody can make it work, you'd be more than welcome. We can even get you a fancy background. We can get you a fancy background, and you know you could have some airtime with us. Think you would thoroughly enjoy it. It's just a matter of staying up late and you know being willing to sacrifice a little bit of your sleep time. But other than that, it's about all I got for week 12 edition
Yeah.
of
Yeah,
the Commish
we're
Dish.
we have a 3 week bloodbath on our hands between a bunch of very competitive teams. So I'm very thankful for that. And I don't really want to be thankful because I'd rather me just be way up there in the top, but I'm glad people aren't quitting. So keep at it. Keep listening to these episodes, and we'll catch you next week.
And if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe to the Commish Dish. We're up to a solid 5 subscribers. Yeah, getting quite a few views, likes, few subscribers, and don't the main host needs to not block the comments. That way we can get a few comments on the
Oh, the
episodes this week
comments
as well.
the comments have been turned on since week 4 or
Oh,
5,
I don't
something
know
like that.
about that. It always tells me they're restricted.
Oh Lord, I
So
don't
you need to
buy it.
figure that shit out.
I don't buy it. All right. Well, I'm exhausted. This has been
Yeah.
fun, but good night to everybody, and we'll catch you later.
Adios.